Welcome to another golden conversation. Hello, everybody. Give us a thumbs up. Invite your friends, invite your neighbors, your co-workers. Tell them that golden conversations has started. This is the place where we talk about retirement and matters that are of interest to our senior citizens. And before we even go any further into today's show, today is March 1. Happy International Women's Day to all the amazing women who are joining us live. Your strength, intelligence, and unwavering spirit inspire us all. Let's celebrate how far we have come and continue to push for progress toward gender equality. And we have a woman of strength, brilliance, integrity, and all things nice joining us this evening, none other than attorney at law, Mrs. Sanya Goffe. Hello, Mrs. Goffe. Welcome to Golden Conversation.
Hi, Shelly. How are you?
I am well, thanks. How are you? I know you're a very busy woman. How is life? How is work? How is everything going with you?
Yes, everything's going well. Trying to work out prep school applications for my little son, which is far more stressful in 2023 than it ever was when we were going to prep school or primary school. So I feel sometimes I must be submitting an application to Harvard or something. It's quite extensive a process, but we press on.
You shall do it. You shall do
Yes.
it. You're a conqueror.
Amen.
And it shall be done. Good, good, good. All right, viewers, subscribers, thank you so much for logging on. Feel free to tell us where you're joining us from as we progress into this conversation. On today's edition of Golden Conversations, we will be discussing pension and retirement planning. Mrs. Goffe is the president of the Pension Industry Association of Jamaica, where she supports the pension reform, education, and advocacy mandates of the association. Among her long list of achievements, other than being a wonderful mom and wife, this phenomenal woman provides advice to companies and trustees on all aspects of pensions law, including managing pension risk, plan restructuring, governance, and general pension issues arising from ongoing activity. I'm not done yet with her bio. She writes frequently on pension issues and is a regular speaker at pension industry webinars, podcasts, and conferences, not only in Jamaica, people, but also globally. Mrs. Goff, are you ready for the Q&A that have been coming in from our subscribers? Mrs. Goff?
You hearing me?
Yes, you're back with us.
Okay.
Awesome,
Yes, I'm
awesome.
ready. I'm ready. I'm ready. Let's go.
Let's go. Okay. First question. What is the right age to start planning for retirement?
Excellent first question. So the right age is the first day you start to work. A lot of people think it's really when you're mid-career in your 40s and you just kind of, you've had some years under your belt and you may have, acquired an asset or two, your car, your home. But the truth is you should be starting from that first paycheck.
But that first paycheck, Mrs. Goff, we want to think about that first car, the house with the picket fences. How can we be able to put pension planning within that maybe small bracket of salary? Because usually the first salary is very small.
Right. And please, Shelly, we're first name basis, so Sanya is good. I preferred. So the truth is we can save up to 20% of our salary, our earnings tax free in a pension arrangement. And that can be, and we can get into that, but that can be your employer sponsored pension plan or a retirement scheme like Scotia, VM, Proven, NCB. They all have retirement scheme products. And no one is saying that from your first day of working, you should be contributing 20%. That might be too much for you, or contributing 10%. But start small And you'll find that as your salary expands, all things being equal in the name of Jesus, you will be able to give a little bit more and escalate that contribution rate. Now, remember, if you are with an employer who has a pension plan, you don't have a choice. You're automatically enrolled in that employer's pension plan as long as you're eligible and you meet the requirements, and you will have deductions made from your salary. And it's statistically it's shown that people save more when they save alongside their paycheck. So it's really for those persons who don't have the benefit of these automatic deductions, who have to now take the initiative to enroll in a retirement scheme or save in some kind of retirement arrangement, that you're asking them to take that initiative to go and set up an account, set up the salary deductions, or make it happen. And that's where the real challenge is. But the truth is, if your employer has a pension plan, which unfortunately is a very small percentage of employers in Jamaica, it's kind of done for you. When you have, but the big encouragement is from you start to work, you should be looking at putting even a small amount away for retirement. And if your employer doesn't have a retirement arrangement, it's perfectly appropriate to ask why not. And if they and also find a way in which you can have salary deductions going straight to a retirement scheme.
Alrighty, so we are hoping that our young viewers will actually take your advice and start saving for retirement from the first job. Let us now flip the coin from the youth to the seniors. What are the major challenges being faced by pensioners?
The biggest challenge, I think, and the biggest risk is outliving your pension. So we're assuming that we all have something saved. And if we start with that premise, the biggest risk and the biggest challenge is that you're going to outlive your savings pot, your pension spot. People are living 2 to 3 decades in retirement. So you retire at 60, people are living 85, 60 or 65, you're living to 80, 85, 90. So imagine that you have to think about 20 to 30 years worth of savings to take you through. And while some of your expenses may be reduced because you're no longer working, things will change. A lot of other types of expenses will increase. So health expenses will increase. And that's usually the biggest kind of budget item, line item for seniors when they have to think about healthcare. And for some of us, we go into retirement and we don't even own our homes. And that's not because of want of trying or desire, but circumstances are such that you're in a rented home. And so you already have this vulnerability in retirement. And if you add to that an inadequate pension pot, savings pot, you really can find yourself in a dire situation. And so that's the biggest challenge. And so the question then becomes, how do we ensure that we do not outlive our pension pot, right? That we don't outlive our savings. And there are a couple of, I would say, thresholds that we have. We try and encourage people who are working to save enough so that they'll have at least 70% of that last salary, those last few years' salary, in retirement. So save what would be equivalent to essentially 70% of what you were earning. So you can get 70% of what you are earning on an annual basis in retirement. The best way to ensure you're meeting that savings target is to speak to your investment manager, because your investment manager, when I say your investment manager, I mean all the retirement scheme providers.
Right. The
Exactly.
corporate
You have
entities
investment
we're
managers
speaking of.
exactly. And many of the statements that you get if you're saving in a retirement scheme will tell you what saving at this rate equals to. This is going to give you basically 30% of what your annual salary is what you will be getting as an annual pension, 60% as an annual pension. So you have a sense of where you are on the spectrum based on what you're saving. And if your statement doesn't tell you that information, or you're not understanding the statement, obviously, of course, you ask questions and you can speak to me.
I'm glad you brought that up, Sanya, because a lot of times as employees, we do not get in touch with the agency that is managing our pension fund. We are employed and the deductions are being made from our salary, but we don't get into that habit of contacting that financial institution to say, what is that lump sum looking like? And what will it be looking like when I get to that age of retirement, and even when I get to age 90? So we need to be encouraging persons that they can actually reach out to these corporate entities. Do you find that there needs to be more advocacy when it comes to persons taking on a personal responsibility when it comes to their pension fund?
So a couple of things. You've raised some really good points, and I want to unpack a few things. One, when you are saving, like as a self-employed person or someone who's not in a pensionable post, and you're saving, let's say, through a retirement scheme, your proven burrito, VM, etc. You get these statements, as I said, and you really have to take that initiative to reach out to your investment manager. And yes, there has to be that kind of advocating for yourself and ensuring you understand what's happening. No more so than this current environment that we're in, and we're seeing the kind of trust that people have had in their service, their advisors, and kind of trust that the statements are enough, and I don't really need to look behind the statement. I don't need to ask any questions. And so we know that there are risks and there are, areas of vulnerability there. So that's on the retirement scheme side, where you're kind of managing it on your own. When you're with an employer that has a superannuation fund, a pension fund, as you said, the deductions are kind of done. You don't think about it. You kind of treat it like NIS, NHT. You just get your paycheck and you go about your business. Most employers, though, who really take the pension arrangement seriously will ensure they have annual meetings with members. And the investment manager and administrators are usually there. Certainly the larger employers do this. And you as a member, as an employee, you have a right to ask for information and ask for meetings because you want to understand what's happening. And so, yes, on both fronts, I would say self-advocacy is going to be really important, and ensuring you understand what's happening. And then we're going to expect, when the legislation is amended, for individuals to be able to save in more than one retirement arrangement. Right now, you cannot be an active contributor to more than one retirement arrangement. So if you're employed at, just for example, Grace Kennedy, and you're contributing to the Grace Kennedy pension plan, you can't also contribute to the Burrito pension plan. You could, Burrito, retirement scheme, or Scotia Bridge, or NCB Smart, or Proven Rock. You couldn't
One of
do
the
that.
financial institutions,
Right. You couldn't be an
outside of
active
your
contributor.
immediate employer.
Correct. You can't be an active contributor to more than one arrangement. Similarly, if you're self-employed or not in a pensionable post, so your employer doesn't have a plan, you can't say, I'm going to put 2% in Proven, 5% in Sagicor, 4% in BNS. You can't do that. It has to be one.
Right.
You're an active contributor. And when the legislation is amended, it is expected that you will, by virtue of the amendments, be able to do that. So you can't do it now, but the anticipation is that when the act is amended, which we hear will be this year, but we're not sure, then you will be able to have your Grace Kennedy deductions happening to your pension arrangement, and then you may want to do an additional amount over at VM, all with a maximum cap of 20%. That is going to make that flexibility and that liberalizing of the contribution environment is going to make that same advocacy and understanding where your different pension pots are and what's happening in those at the different providers. Exactly. So it's almost going to be like you have several bank accounts at several banks. And you need to know what your balances look like.
And based on what is being proposed now in the legislation, will it still remain at the 20% of the annual income?
Currently, yes. The current amendments don't speak to an increase in that amount.
Right.
But I do know that there is, a kind of restlessness on the ground that 20% ought to increase. In fact, one of the things that, and it may be of interest to your viewers, your listeners, is that one of the proposed amendments is to have a parental pension. Where a parental and dependent pension, where you can contribute to a pension for your, let's say, your parent, your mom, your dad, or a dependent. So that's not part of your pension. So remember, when you have your pension and you're making your contributions, I can name a beneficiary. I could name my mom, my dad, my spouse, my dependent as a beneficiary.
Right.
Separately. And then that dependent can get a pension based on mine when I die, or if I die before them, or I could share my pension with them when I get to retirement. There are a number of different permutations that the constitutive documents of the pension plan can allow.
Right.
What the amendment is proposed, and it is an amendment, it is not yet law, but what is being proposed is that you can separately, in addition to the amount that's deducted for your salary, separately save for yourself for a pension, but also save for your mom, save for your dad, so that If they're in a situation where they're vulnerable, they don't have a pension, their savings don't appear to be adequate, you can contribute in an arrangement. And this, of course, would be a retirement scheme arrangement on their behalf.
Thank you so much for this updated information. In terms of what is being proposed now, is it contributing for the parent who is now retired or the parent before
It
retirement?
could be even with the parent who, well, let me just say, I haven't seen the actual wording of the bill because that hasn't been circulated. So if there's a condition on the status of the parent in terms of working, I think the condition would have to be that the parent is not itself himself contributing to an arrangement. So if the parent is already in a pension plan, I don't think they would qualify. This would have to be somebody, I imagine, who's not. But I haven't seen the bill.
Okay.
And that part was not fleshed out in the recommendations, but it's an excellent question. The point I want to make, though, is that the 20% cap is captured under that.
Oh.
So you're still caught up in the 20% cap. And that is one of the things that I think will kind of provoke a discussion or an agitation for an increase in the limit.
Right.
Because it's hard enough already. If I'm minded to kind of go to 20% for myself, and that's an allowance that people have for themselves, if you're going to allow me to save for my mom, my dad, my dependent, why should it prejudice how much I can save for myself? Let me continue at my 20%, and maybe I can do an additional, but that additional is capped out when it comes to saving for somebody else. So there are some elements of the discussion that seem to be refined.
Oh, thank you so much for these updates. I really appreciate it. But as we talk about the possibility, let us call it that, of contributing for someone else as well as doing that maximum of 20%, is there a dollar figure as it pertains to what is the right livable amount in retirement age?
Honestly, I think that Shelley is a person by person, individual type of situation, because you have people who they own property, they are great health, they may even have children who support them, they may have a spouse who is much younger than they are, and they contribute to financially to their living circumstances. I mean, there are a number of situations where people don't contribute in a pension arrangement during their working life, but they've done a lot of other savings, and albeit they don't get the benefit of the tax deductions, which is really what makes pension savings so much more attractive than just saving otherwise. But they may have done very well, and they may have had investments, they may have other businesses, and so it's really hard to say what's the literal physical exact dollar amount, because what works for you and what works for me would be different, and what I consider comfortable retirement might be quite different from my colleagues.
Right. Good. Thank you for that answer. And we're now in the phase of the great resignation. A number of persons are resigning from corporate, from the 9 to 5, and moving into self-employment. What advice do you have for self-employed individuals as it pertains to saving towards their retirement?
Right. So that, of course, comes back to the same scenario of persons who are with an employer who doesn't have a pension plan. It's really about taking that initiative. And I would love to touch a little later on the proposal that the PIAJ has on auto-enrollment, which is a way of encouraging people who are not with an employer pension plan, but who are working in a company to save for retirement. But when it comes to gig workers, persons who are self-employed, low income and informal workers, it becomes a lot more challenging.
Go ahead and do that right now. It's no time like the present.
Right. And so it requires you to kind of take what's called an opt-in approach. You have to opt in on your own and sign up. And so that's really that behavior, trying to change that behavior and encourage people, because what we've seen is that no amount of financial literacy has moved the needle over the last 20 to 30 years to improve retirement savings, right? So the people who get caught up in that 9 to 11% pension coverage in the private sector, most of them are employed individuals, or persons where the employer has put them in some kind of retirement scheme. So those gig workers, informal workers, will have to really just take that initiative and sign up. There's nothing that can be done to force them. What is being considered, though, seriously by the Financial Services Commission is the introduction of micropensions. And micropensions is really targeted at low income and informal workers. A little less so the self-employed, consultant who's very well-to-do and well-off, landing big contracts. Not so much you. You should go to a retirement scheme and make your contributions at least annually. But when we talk, but the majority of the working class in Jamaica are informal, low income
Right.
workers. How do we get the coconut vendor, the fish vendor, the taxi drivers to feel like this is important for them? Now, most people that you talk to will tell you, I can't even see my way past next week, much less to ask me to plan for 65. 65 is in some realities in Jamaica is some, that's not even something that happens on average.
Let's just be frank. It's taboo.
Yes, it's unlikely. I don't see myself, you're an elder if you're 40. We're not
Yes.
talking about 60 and 65. So there's that mindset challenge to get over, and I don't have an answer for that. But what I do know is that there is this proposal or contemplation to introduce micropensions. And what micropensions is enrolling people in a very simple, frictionless way into a pension arrangement, like a retirement scheme, that would see them making deductions, small deductions, or small contributions rather,
Right. Contributions.
more often, right? So it's micro. So I'm contributing $1,000. I'm nudged to contribute $100, $200, but these nudges to get me to contribute happen quite often. So I get a notification on my phone. You have $2,500 credit. Do you want to contribute 250, 350, 750 to your pension plan? Click yes. And then you click yes again. And you click until you have contributed the 750. And it's linked to your bank account. You go to the grocery store. And, I'm not sure if you've ever been in the States, and it says, do you want to contribute as you're about to cash out? Do you want to contribute $1 to St. Jude's Hospital?
Yeah, a charity, yeah.
Right. Or do you want to, your bill is $2,559. Do you want to contribute do you want to kind of round up for $600 with the difference going to a charity? And usually there's a picture of some, very compelling individual in need,
yes.
and you contribute. So it's that kind of prompt at points where it's small amounts, but the prompts are often.
So the consideration for these contributions, will it be made to the national insurance scheme or to a financial institution?
Would be what we call second pillar contribution. So national NIS is a social security scheme.
Right. Yeah.
Not, a pension is a part of that benefit, but there are many other benefits, but it's really our social security program.
Oh, so the consideration is for these micro pension to go to a financial,
like a retirement scheme, right? One of the retirement schemes. The question then becomes, though, is it feasible? Is it, when you think about the fees and when you think about the operating costs of a number of hundreds of thousands of small accounts, is it worth it? So that feasibility study needs to be done. And then also the sustainability of it. Because it's one thing to say we're going to increase coverage from 9 to 11%, which is where it has hovered at in the private sector for many, many years, for decades. If you consider public sector workers and tourism sector workers, it bumps up to, in the tourism sector pension plan, it bumps up to about 18%. It's not a lot. But the question is, it's one thing to say we've moved the coverage from 9 to 11 to 20, 25, 30 because of micro pensions, because of simply the accounts. But if the balances in the accounts are small, then we have a sustainability crisis. We have an adequacy crisis. Because it's one thing to have a retirement account and we say, oh, great, coverage has increased. But if what you have in that retirement account can't take it past next month, then you might as well not have had it, right? So there are challenges in terms of, when we look at micro pensions. It has worked in a number of countries. Nigeria, Kenya, Nigeria, Rwanda. It has worked in a number of different countries, and India as well. India is a big example of the success of micro pensions. And
they have one of the oldest populations in the world.
Right. And they have a similar type of demographic in the sense of a large majority of the population being low-income workers, informal sector workers. The challenge, though, is still come back to sustainability and adequacy, because people will be inconsistent with when they save, even though they may get several nudges. Not every time you're nudged, you're going to save. And it then comes back to the adequacy of it. But the beauty of micro pensions and what makes it work is when you have this kind of technological underpinning, that kind of technological plumbing that supports it. So there's an interface at your local supermarket, an interface when you go to the gas station to top up, to nudge you. Everybody, I mean,
It's
we
in
have,
our face.
right, and we have significant, probably one of the deepest mobile penetration rates in Jamaica in terms of mobile phones, the number of Jamaicans that own a phone. So we have the devices in our hands already, but it's now to link that with a with any kind of account provider to say you get nudged by them. So there other countries have done it. It's not impossible. We can do it, and we have to find a way that the fit works for us. But that's a solution that's being looked at by the Financial Services Commission and at the Pension Industry Association of Jamaica. We support any initiative that will see the improvement of coverage. And we hope to work with the regulator to see that implementation too.
And I know earlier you mentioned that we need to change our mindset. So maybe we need to get more of the senior citizens on board in terms of that advocacy, who can voice to say these are no my challenges as it pertains to being a retiree.
Honestly, I love that. And in fact, we at the PIAJ, we turn over a lot of different approaches. And one such approach was, do we get a senior citizen to say, listen, I didn't do it right, and this is what I'm looking at. Now, people don't really want to talk about their business like that, but and you could have somebody who's like, I did it right, and I am on a cruise every month, and I'm enjoying my grandchildren, and I'm living my life, and just really being the epitome of retirement security, rather.
I'm glad you mentioned grandchildren, because a number of Jamaicans have this notion, Sanya, that our children is our retirement.
Yeah.
That's our
So
retirement
we have a
fund.
phrase in Jamaica, my picnic and my pension, yeah, man. You pour everything into your children, send them off to school, and they need to really just come back and take care of me. And culturally, nothing is wrong with that, in that there's a beauty, and there's a beauty in being able to kind of well, I wouldn't say there's a beauty in the sacrifice, but where parents make that sacrifice, invest in their children, and their children really come back and kind of
But should the
pay a
children be?
return.
But the
So
children shouldn't be feel as if they're forced though,
no,
because they
correct, but
also have
I
their
don't
own
want to.
life to live.
Right, and I want to be careful about the sensitivity around that type of relationship. And I can say that, I used to be very like, pick me on my pension, you shouldn't say that, and I wasn't really sufficiently tuned in culturally and socially as to how that works in Jamaica. And yes, so let me just say, financial resilience is important. We need to break cycles of intergenerational poverty and intergenerational dependence. We need to break that. So when you can take care of yourself and ensure that you are financially resilient and you don't have to look to your children to take care of you, then that helps to break the cycle and allow your children to be themselves financially independent, so that when they start to work, they don't have to think, Lord, man, I forgot to do this, I have to do this. And they aren't able to stand on their own, earlier. That being said, I'm not at all discounting that where parents do make those sacrifices and say, I cannot afford to put $1 away from my retirement when I have my son's school fees to pay. That just is and I get that is a part of our the kind of ongoing sacrifice parents and in many cases in Jamaica, mothers have to make. And we talk about International Women's Day, but that mothers have to make. And so when children are able to really leverage that sacrifice and recognize the investment in themselves and go out and do well, then they're able to kind of take care of their parents. There's a beauty in that. There is, because not every child does it. But I agree with you. It really shouldn't be an expectation, because that pressure continues to create this, and in many cases create and perpetuate an intergenerational poverty.
Definitely, and I see one of the comments coming in saying too many seniors are suffering and they have children.
Yeah,
it's a reality. So moving on from that though, what is your advice for someone who is nearing retirement age and they wasn't saving for after age 65?
Somebody who never saved anything and they're at 65.
They're close to age 65, so no pension, no retirement fund.
Right. Well, if they're still working and they're still eligible to join a pension arrangement, I would do it for that period of time, because the tax benefits are still There's still an advantage in the tax benefit in that you're saving before your income is taxed. So you'll always get that and get that benefit. And then of course, all returns on anything you've saved, even during that short time, would be tax free. When you
Okay.
get to retirement, though, you do have your income tax. So it's not totally tax free. It's what we call actually tax deferred, so that you actually get the benefit of savings during your working life, and the returns are tax free during your working life, and then you get taxed at the end. But
I don't think a number of persons understand that, Sanya, that up to the age of retirement, when you start to get your pension, it is
it's
taxable.
tax, yeah. So we typed it with so the income. So it's really what we call in the accumulation phase, when you are saving and accumulating that balance, that it's tax. It's not taxed. When you're in the decumulation phase, where you're pulling down that pension now, that's when it is going to be taxed. Yes. So we really should say a tax deferred system, because it's not tax free. Now, when you hit retirement, of course, you get a 25% lump sum tax free. So it's a 75% that's taxed. Plus, as well, remember there's that income tax threshold, I think of 1.5, that's not taxed. So there's some of it that you can
Little
kind of carve
window,
out
yeah.
and
Mhm.
exactly.
All right. Okay, so we're nearing the end of this conversation. What advice do you have for say, all right, let's not go to the advice. Let's talk about how is Jamaica in terms of comparison with the rest of the world with regards to pension.
So our pension regime, in terms of the structure of it, is a pretty solid framework. So when you think about recommendations from the OECD as to what really makes a kind of first world, first class pension system, a lot of that framework, a lot of that's what a lot of what is put into that framework we have it in our legislative framework. Um, what I think where we are really behind is in the area of coverage. So when I go to conferences and I say 90, 11%, or if I want to kind of bump it up and say 18%, the reaction is almost like they're mortified that we have a country, that as a country, we're at 18% coverage. And when you consider that our old age dependency ratio is worsening, meaning the number of persons who are 65 and older as a percentage of the working population is increasing. We are becoming an elderly population. We have more people older. We have more older people in society than persons who are between the 18 and 64 age group. There's this pressure that you see with this old age dependency pressure. And if our pensioners and our seniors are not in a financially resilient position, they don't have retirement security, what does that mean? They're going to be looking to the state to look after them. There's going to be this kind of expectation, and the state is going to expect taxpayers to help support that in terms of social services and programs, right? And so at the end of the day, we have to take a hard look as a country at a retirement scheme crisis. That is what we are. It's not even what we're facing, we're in it. Old age poverty is real. It is not theoretical, it is real. We all know people. We can at least cite one example of someone we know who lived well when they were working, drive good car, went on vacations, and they are in dire circumstances now because they did not take adequate steps. Old age poverty is real. We have, as one of your listeners said, so many pensioners, seniors are suffering, really suffering because of this. And so as a result, we need a government that is prepared to take the creative, hard decisions to change the landscape, essentially. And one of the things we advocate for at the Pension Industry Association of Jamaica is auto enrollment. So where your employer doesn't have a pension plan, do not leave it to that individual to go and opt into a pension arrangement. No, auto enroll that person in any one of the 13 retirement scheme providers that we have, and let it be their choice to opt out. And what behavioral science has shown, Shelley-Ann, is that the same inertia and procrastination and can't bother attitude that holds us back from opting in on our own is the same procrastination that will tend to apply or tend to kind of prevail and say, you know what, we're not going to opt out. And so you find that countries around the world that have adopted auto enrollment, not all of them, but many of them have had success because people don't opt out. And we change the choice architecture. So we make it mandatory, not for an employer to have a pension plan. We're not making it mandatory for an employer to have a pension plan, but make it mandatory for an employer to put me in a retirement scheme if you are not going to offer a pension plan. And you make the deductions and you pay it over just like you make the deductions for NIS and NHT, etc. And so it will capture not everybody, but it's low-hanging fruit that can be a solution to move the needle on coverage. So we have our tourism workers pension plan, and we're working with a particular sector there. We introduce auto enrollment and we bump it up a little bit more there. We look at micro pensions and we can probably bump it up a little bit more. It has to be a multifaceted approach to this crisis, because we're not a one-size-fits-all type of working population. And so we need a myriad of different approaches to tackle the issue. And so that's one of the things that we're advocating for strongly. We've done a lot of work in this area. Check out our website, our paper is there. And we've done a lot of what we call lobby work. And we're hoping to really continue with the work and get it.
Those who have ears, let them hear.
Right. But the reality is that where we measure up, we are one of the lowest countries in terms of coverage. And there are ways in which we can attack this crisis, because we're an aging population and our old age dependency ratio has been worsening since the 1960s. And so, I remember when you add to the fact that fertility rates are falling, and there's a lot of brain drain, people are leaving the country. So who stays in Jamaica? That denominator is shrinking while our elderly population is increasing, right? And there's this pressure that's being applied. So we have a lot of things that we need to kind of attack it. But I can tell you, programs like these are helpful, and they help to kind of agitate conversation and improve awareness. But financial literacy is not improving coverage. Financial literacy has not, in the last 20 to 30 years, moved the needle sufficiently on coverage.
Wow. So it's definitely the mindset that we need to work
change the choice architecture and basically use nudges in a way that really, so auto enrollment is really a nudge. It's just like, we're going to put you in. We're just going to put you in. You can come out. So you still control your retirement planning, but we're going to put you in as a first step. And we're going to auto escalate it over time. And you can opt out. And if you opt out, we're going to put you in the following year. Because sometimes when people opt out, they're not opting out because they never want to save ever and ever. There's no one in Jamaica who doesn't want to save. Jamaicans are savers. If you think about the informal partner schemes and different people save, but they may not be able to save right now, so they'll opt out. But a year later might be a time when so we want to create something that has very little friction in terms of getting you into the retirement scheme, but also kind of nudges you to keep saving, while at the same time not being a tax. So we're not forcing you. If you want to come out, you can come out. Also, our proposal does not mandate that employers should have to contribute, because we're not trying to put a tax on employers either, right? So I'm just the point I'm making is that we're in a dire situation. We're in a retirement scheme, retirement security crisis, but there are ways in which we can fix this. PIAJ is advocating for some, FSC is investigating some, but we really need at the level of the makers in this country now to say, yes, we're going to make these hard decisions, and we're going to take them now.
Well, you have heard it. The president of the Pension Industry Association of Jamaica has nudged you, go and get a pension plan. And Sanya, we need to define it a little bit more for our people, for them to understand that, just as you mentioned about you can go into a partner plan, you don't have to wait until you're employed in that corporate entity. You can walk into a financial institution and say, I want a pension plan.
Exactly. So we have 13 retirement scheme providers. If you want to know the names of those providers, they're all members of the PIAJ. So their names are on our website. That's piaj.org.jm, I think.
We can Google.
Yeah, piaj.right.org.
Pension Industry Association of Jamaica.
Right. And the Financial Services Commission also has useful information on its website. So you can also find the names of the retirement scheme providers there. So yes, any of them.
Because we don't want them to be in a crisis when they get to retirement.
No, you have to really own this situation. And so until we have things like auto enrollment being a part of the framework and the landscape. And like I said, auto enrollment is not going to catch everyone. It won't catch the self-employed.
Right.
So you may or may not get caught up in the net. So you need to know what your reality looks like. You have people who started out in a working in a traditional space and then became self-employed, or vice versa. So depending on where you are in terms of your working life corridor, you may or may not be in a pension arrangement. And so it has to be front of mind.
Yeah, and we have to be real with ourselves. You are either a hustler, entrepreneur, or employed in the formal sector. It doesn't matter where you are, you can get a pension plan, and it's never too early for you to get a pension plan because, as you said, we are in a crisis.
Yes.
People are living longer, so just as though you're planning for age 20, age 30. A number of us as Jamaicans, we plan for age 30. Between age 20, 30, we want to go to the party, we want to have that car, we want to have that house. We can also plan for age 65 and older.
Right. Correct.
Thank you so much, Sanya.
You're welcome, Shelly. This
That's
was
all
lovely.
Yes, yes, very informative. And we do hope that our viewers will take this information, implement it, assist your friends, assist your family members in getting a pension plan. We need to help each other to get out of this crisis that is facing our country as it pertains to old age poverty. Please to follow us on YouTube at Golden Designs or Facebook at Senior Citizens Jamaica. On our next Golden Conversation, it will be in person. Yep, the next Golden Conversation will be in person when we will look at cybersecurity awareness for senior citizens. Until then, I am Shelley Thompson today with
Sanya. Oh, that was funny.
You're so gracious. Have a happy International Women's Day, everyone. Do take care. Thank you for joining us.